So we're back and we're going to work on this little sable antelope here. So let's get in here. So with this one I want to go a little more graphic. I want to show you more of that two value process again, and then I'm going to feather off that, and you can kind of see that by the drawing. So let's see. Let's start out here with this thigh. But again, the sable antelopes may definitely be a creature you might want to look at if you were doing any kind of horn creature in any kind of concept design. Since they have this kind of half circle horns, those are very nice for a lot of horn type creatures you might see in a fantasy type setting. They can work well for different maybe demon type creatures or maybe satyrs or Greek satyrs or fauns or different various mythological creatures like that. So I got everything kind of blocked in now. So now what I want to do is, you can see kind of how I've designed a lot of the muscles. I kind of treat a lot of the design of the muscles. I'm not so worried about the muscles in this. Like, I'm not worried about what's what and all that stuff, especially if you're still new to that stuff. Don't worry, so don't freak out or anything like that. Just treat it like little triangular shapes, and and just maybe a little bit of a dip in it or whatnot. So that's kind of how I'm going to treat it. I'm going to kind of look at this a little more graphically. I'm going to think like a Mike Mignola kind of design. And I'm not going to freak out too much. I'm just going to come in. I'm going to really go for that 2 value. So right off the bat, again, just another way to go about these things. Getting that strong triangular shape. Just what I mean by that is just small little triangle shapes. They could bend and things like that, but they're just kind of hitting into each other. It'll help make some good designed, well-designed anatomy. Especially if, that stuff's tricky for you and you don't quite know everything you're looking at sometimes. But another thing to remember is animals really aren't that much different from us. It's just all the anatomy is just put in a place. It's all mostly the same, but it's just put in a place of whatever they use the most, like whatever their specialty is, I guess. So that's kind of the nice thing, is once you kind of understand humans, animals aren't that much different. Yes, there are little things that are going to be different. But that's why you learn about the groupings. Like, this is the primate group. This is the cloven-hoofed family group. This is the big cat group. So as you learn about the groupings, once you kind of understand one set of that anatomy, it's very similar between them all in that group. Where you can get a little trickier is when we get into birds and things like that. That can be a lot trickier. So I'd say if animals are an important part of where you want to go with your art career, then I think Jeff does a really good job of kind of explaining, be diligent and set up that schedule. It's like, okay, this is this month or these months I'm working on this thing. And if animals are really important, maybe say, okay, for these 3 months, I'm going to work on the cloven hoofed family. For these 3 months, I'm going to work on the big cat family. So that'll help you a lot. But again, for most of you, I imagine animals are going to be kind of a secondary thing. So if you understand human anatomy, it's not super complicated to go and draw decent animals, somewhat believable, or not somewhat, but believable animals. As long as you understand human anatomy and you just understand the difference. Again, that Elliot Goldfinger book, I'm kind of cliff noting a lot of that stuff, majorly cliff noting, but it is such a wealth of information, because what it really makes you understand is that comparative anatomy. Is if you're looking at an animal and you're looking straight down on their back, you're really seeing it's really not that much different. The only difference usually with these kind of four-legged animals like this is your shoulder blade is going to be more on the side versus us. So you just have to change that up a bit. And sometimes the vertebrae are going to be a little different, but not that much, not that big of a deal. So that's pretty much set up. Again, I have all those big graphic triangle shapes in there that I want that help represent those muscles. Now let's feather from those triangle shapes and give more form to this antelope and complexity. But you can see that's pretty simple. So that's a pretty simple start, and just that little bit of feathering is really gonna give it that little bit of life we need. Let's start in here. So from that dark, just like in earlier when I was talking about kind of that comic book illustration style, when we were doing the kind of inking essential techniques part, with the balls and the cubes and all that stuff, and we worked on the arm. It's a similar technique that we're using here. Not worrying too much about what's what, just, you know, trying to give some form, trying to make something interesting. Doesn't have to be 100%. Because I think that's one thing that really screws people up when they're doing anatomy and stuff like that, is they're like, oh, it's in the wrong area, this, and they freak out. And it's like, you know, yeah, some of it can strap in the wrong place, and you got your insertions areas maybe not on right, but it's not that huge of a deal as long as you generally get it in the mostly in the general direction. And then over time, you'll just get better and better at placing it. So I think pretty quickly, just because we've laid out all our little triangular shapes, we're getting something kind of interesting. Just pulling a little bit of that form right through here. And again, you're not worrying so much about that anatomy, you're just looking at the form. You got your little triangle shapes, and you're just, how's that going to roll? That's what you're thinking about. All right. And then I'm going to roll, not roll, but I'm going to actually shade a little bit and create a little value in the neck here. Wasn't really rolling that, but it was more of a flat directional thing so I can get the sheen through here. But in here I am rolling. So I want to get more of that. Here, again, I want to roll these folds. And again, these folds they're going to be a little bit of the folding of the in the shoulders and neck area, but they're also part of the muscles in the shoulder blade area. So I imagine it's, well, I'll get into the anatomy a little more when we get in the lion. I want to step ahead because, again, what I'm doing right here is not about the anatomy. It's just about design. And it's about rolling form and that interesting shape design with triangles. So on the next stage of this, if I wanted to get kind of the darker sheen of the fur, which you might do if you had a horse or something like that, if you have a dark horse, I'm kind of going to go like this. I'm going to figure out where's the shine to the fur. In the reference, it's a little nowhere, I guess. I guess there's a little bit of a sheen through here. Not really in here. So I'd have to kind of punch it up a little bit. Let's see. And maybe roll this down. So that sheen hopefully is going to come across. I overworked that a bit. I don't like that much, but that's okay. Sometimes you gotta move on. So I am slightly rolling it to the form, but I'm looking at this underside's light, so I'm not going to take it that far. My brush was drying out a bit, so I'll just get a little more on there. And then, let's see, get back into, well, I want to pull some of this. Again, that feathering out from the dark, that really helps push form. So a lot of this is going to just be popping into that dark, creating that sheen, feathering out from that dark, right into that bone, right in here. I'm going to darken that because it was just too isolated, even though in the, no, that's right. And then I'm going to come back in. Again, this is a fake leg, you know, I made it up, but I'm going to darken it. Just going with the flow and just making it a little darker. Because the more I push the shadow bits back here, the more it'll just push that leg back a little bit. Same within here. And I would argue too, if you want, this will help strengthen the weight of it, deepen your values as you go down. So these So once we get into the hooves down here, we can really darken that. My brush is running out of ink again.